No pressure, no diamonds. No friction, no fire.
What's the biggest mistake you made in real estate?
This was a long time ago. I don't make that many mistakes anymore. No, it's a joke. But you see how I had to lean back in my chair. One of the most biggest mistakes that I made and one of the hardest pills I've ever had to swallow was getting into contract without properly negotiating. And I left some money on the table because I didn't properly write my contract and the expectations. And I made some investments into a person that wasn't really, locked into the deal with me. And, I kind of just overly trusted somebody that was obviously in a very distressed situation, and it was hard for them to have their moral compass pointed in the right direction, and it ended up being a lesson for me. I don't really ever call anything a loss, but it ended up being a big lesson for me. And I started to understand the importance of contracts and having things in writing and just making sure that my investments were much better protected in the future. But that was a huge learning opportunity for me, and I've never made that mistake again, actually. And that happened really early on in my career. So because it happened so early on, I just never made that mistake again. I'm actually glad that happened.
How do you stay motivated during slow market periods?
That's a great question. Again, I'm a loaded agent. Of course I don't have slow market periods. That's kind of one of the things that I'm super proud of. That's one of the things that I've cracked the code on. When realtors specifically, this isn't specifically an answer for like wholesalers or fix and flippers or rehabbers or people that are playing the long game in real estate. I think realtors are so indoctrinated to slow times. And for me, because I'm in that distressed niche, and I still handle, buyer clients when it's necessary, but I pass those off to my team. I run my business like a business. And so I'm always in the forefront of marketing. And maybe it's just blessings, maybe it's the fruits of my labor, maybe it's the seeds that I planted during the planting season, but I don't really have a lot of slow times in my business. I've been closing 3 to 5 deals per month for literal years. So I don't, I'm super blessed, and you can get past the slow time just by planting more seeds in the planting season. So I'm super blessed. I haven't really had slow times. Now, before I was in this specific niche, how I dealt with slow times was just more marketing, right? Because even the multi-billion-dollar companies got billboards and commercials and things of this nature. So just more marketing.
What were you doing before real estate?
For real estate, I was always been in sales, so I've always been in sales. My first sales job, it wasn't legal, but the product I was selling was not on the internet. But I think, just being in sales my whole entire life, and then, getting into insurance. Actually, it's funny because my first business I opened up when I was about 17 years old, 17 turning 18. It was called Exclusive Fashions, exclusive clothing at the time. But me and a business partner of mine who, again, was in a business with me that wasn't no W-2 business. It wasn't no 1099, but, we were entrepreneurial spirits, and we just thought, at some point in time, we got to do something better. And so I started off, I owned a clothing store, and then I got into some personal branding where I owned my own clothing line, and I quickly outgrew that because that was more of an urban, hip hop, scene thing that we were doing as younger kids. And then I got into insurance sales. I got into health and fitness and supplement sales. And then I got really good in personal development. I spent a lot of time and energy on personally developing myself, mind, body, spirit, financial fitness. I think my biggest breakthrough came when I got into insurance to energy, and then energy to real estate, because each one of those products, the price point started growing higher and higher and higher and higher. And also through all the, personal development that I was experiencing, I became the subject matter expert in so many different fields, and I really put a lot of time and effort into personal development. And ultimately landing in real estate is what actually tipped me over to the multi-7-figure income earning level. So yeah, sales. I started off in sales.
What is the best piece of advice you received about real estate?
The best piece of advice I received about real estate came from one of my mentors. I'm not even going to name them because I don't want it to sound weird. But he had said to me, he goes, I love real estate, in the 300,000 or less realm. I think at that time he said 250 or 150 or less realm. And I was like, damn, that sounds kind of racist. You know what I mean? He was like, I like buying in the ghetto. I like buying in places that are cheap and easy to manage. And I was like, why? And he was like, because people come, they stay, and they never leave. And as long as it's affordable, more people can actually get into it. And another thing that he said to me was seller finance was better than being a landlord. And that inevitably became kind of like the cornerstone of my business. So I just believe in seller financing over being a landlord for a plethora of different reasons. But one of the best pieces of advice I got pertaining to real estate was, buy the cheap stuff, buy the quality cheap stuff that everybody can get into. And I think that's one of the things that when the market changes will always work. And then one of the best pieces of advice I ever got just in general was like, and my grandma told me this, she was like, no matter how tough it is, just tell the truth, like chin up, chest out, and just tell the truth, because it's easier for you to just kind of go through it head on, headstrong, and deal with it face first so that you don't have to deal with it, down the road. So that's the best advice I've ever gotten.
How do you manage your time effectively?
Managing my time effectively literally boils down to these devices, which is why I got 2 or 3 of them right here in front of my face. I schedule everything. Before we even got here in the camera, I was like, okay, let's do it. Like we were negotiating, I was like, okay, let's put a couple of times on the calendar. Literally, they have to be on the calendar. Like, pick your kids up from, school, date night, movie time, content creation, offer structure time, business meeting time with the staff. For me, managing my time purely is based on living off of my calendar. And I think some people think that that's not the right way to live, but I think just remember that what cannot be measured cannot be managed. And so if you're not measuring your time, you're not managing your time. And so living by my calendar is how I actually effectively manage my time.
What is your favorite marketing strategy for attracting buyers?
My favorite marketing strategy for attracting buyers or sellers will always be one-to-one data, calls, phone calls, texts, and emails. Again, it's just because this device is so powerful that you're looking at ads on your phone, right? You're looking at, let me ask you a question, like to everybody watching this, and the answer is yes, inevitably, so it's a loaded question. Have you ever got a text, didn't reply it, but then got a phone call and answered your phone? The answer is yes. Have you ever got a phone call, missed it, or like just ignored it and then got a text, picked up your phone and then replied to the text? The answer is yes. Have you ever gotten a phone call and a text, ignored them both, got an email and then responded to the email? The answer is inevitably yes. So we're walking around with like these 3 or 4 one devices where you can watch TV. TV will have ads in between it. You can be on the phone receiving text messages. It's just always gonna be, one-to-one contact, communication. And I don't care what kind of technology emerges, being on the phone with somebody and building rapid rapport as an actual human being, just being human, that'll never die. I just love one-to-one, old school phone, text, email marketing.
How do you keep up with real estate market trends?
Keeping up with real estate market trends just comes from actually being involved in the business. So I ask this question to my students: who is the more experienced individual? The person that's been doing it the longest or the person that does the most of it? And so sometimes they'll scratch their head a little bit and they'll be like, well, what do you mean? And I'll be like, well, listen, if somebody's been doing something for 20 years or somebody's been doing something for 20 days, but the guy that's been doing it for 20 days does it every single day, and the guy that's been doing it for 20 years has only done it 10 times, the guy that has done it for 20 days has done it 10 times more than the guy that's been doing it for 20 years. So, keeping up with market trends literally just means keeping active in your business. If you stay active in whatever it is that you do, you'll never be outside of the box. You'll never be outside of the market trend, right? Like if you're a basketball player and you play basketball every day and you watch basketball every day and you go to basketball practices every day, you will know all the new trends. You'll know the Euro step, you'll know the pick and rolls, you'll know everything because you're constantly in motion. And so keeping up with market trends just means having a busy business and just staying in motion.
What's the most challenging client you've ever worked with?
It's funny because I've done hundreds of transactions. But I'm actually dealing with a client right now that just kind of has the amnesia kind of factor where it's like, whatever I just told them, they're like, I don't recall that. And then I just have to go up through our screenshots and always remind them of what we just said. And I don't even find that to be annoying or difficult. I just find it to be a thing. And the better you get at just understanding that, your client is looking for your 100% guidance, and just your 100% support, and you become much more than an investor or, a cash buyer or a wholesaler or a rehabber. And, you become a straight up support system for them. You become an anchor for them. You become a psychiatrist to them. You become, nutritionist to them. Anybody that you are serving is, that's just something that you have to do. But right now in this current situation, That's a client that I'm dealing with. She just can't remember anything that I say to her. So she's like, is this gonna be, you said it was gonna be free. I never said that. Look at the text messages.
How do you handle difficult negotiations?
That's a great question. You know, difficult negotiations, honestly, it's just about transparency. You know, you're not gonna be able to create a mutually beneficial outcome without just like leaning into it, right? So a lot of times with difficult negotiations, I'll just lay it out all on the table. Like, for instance, I got a seller right now, like literally, I just got off the phone with him before we started this interview, and he wanted $120,000 for the property. We walked it, you know, I love properties at $250,000 and less. So, you know, I didn't want to show all my hands by being like overly excited, but that $9,000 could make or break, you know, that profit margin for us, right? And so I obviously say to all my sellers, like, yeah, I want you to get the amount of money that you want, but obviously this is a business transaction as well as something that we have to make sure is mutually beneficial. And so I lay out the things that I think can make it mutually beneficial. And then sometimes I'll add a few little bonuses in to try to sway them in my direction. But when it comes to difficult negotiations, for me, I don't know how this sounds and I don't really care. There is no such thing as a difficult negotiation because I really lean into transparency and honesty while trying to take an empathetic approach. So obviously I want to care about what they want, but it just has to be mutually beneficial.